Welcome to The Pestle, reviewing and breaking down movies to look for insights into the movie-making process. Hosted by the ghost of good movie trailers. Remember when previews didn't ruin the movie? Let's dim the lights and start the show.
Welcome everybody to The Pestle. Today's show is brought to you by Night of the Blood Freaks. Make a great escape to the movie all your friends are watching and see Night of the Blood Freaks in 3D. Welcome everyone to The Pestle. I am Wes.
And I am Todd.
And we're filmmakers. I'm a full-time writer-director. And Todd's a full-time producer. We both act. We both write. Do a bunch of stuff, and we try to use all of that information as both a way to demystify and look inside a movie, break it down, see what it's made of. That's why we call it the pestle. It's like a pestle and mortar. You grind it up, see what it's made of. But we also use it, or at least I do, as a method of trying to get better at what I do. As a storyteller, like I love coming in and seeing how does this movie operate. You know, what are the fundamentals? What are the principles that are at play that make this a good or a bad story? And how can I apply that to anything I'm working on? And of course, it's just fun. It's always really fun. Being on a movie set is probably one of the more fun things you can do. It's so creative. It's collaborative. You're both working on art, but it's also very serious. And I don't know if there's anything more fun than just being very serious about your art. It's so pretentious, but at the same time, it's necessary because you're putting a lot of money on the line. You're putting a lot of time and energy on the line. Why wouldn't you take it serious? But one of the things that I think can make you grow the most is mistakes that you make while making something, screw ups, and in a number of ways, whether it's, well, don't do that again. You know, that's one thing. But there's sometimes you make a mistake and you have to make a choice. I think one of my mistakes that I was like, I don't know what to do right now. So I like to shoot film, Super 16, and it's a weird process shooting on film. And so I bought a camera a while back and just kind of put it on the shelf because I was like, I don't know how to operate this thing yet. So I took some classes, read some stuff online, but I still need to get my hands dirty, right? You need to be on set working with this thing. And so I connected with a local cinematographer, and he was working on a short film. And so he's like, hey, can we use your camera for the short film? And I was like, yes, I won't charge you a thing for it. But the asterisk is I need to be the one loading it. I want to load the film. I want to work on this project as the loader so that at a minimum I can get some reps in, loading, downloading film. You load it, and downloading is whenever you're unloading the exposed film, right? Because it's celluloid. And so on one side you have to load it in pitch black, right? I have a canvas, a tint. It's really a bag. It's not a tent. Tents have nice propped up things, which is significant for the story I'm about to tell. And so the bag, though, is just this flat thing. You put your hands in. It's pitch black. And so you zip it, you Velcro it, and there's these two little holes that are, what do you call it? It's like a spandex, what elastic band, and it's double ringed. And so you slip your hands in. That way, no light can seep in, because if any light gets in there, you ruin the film. The whole point of film is you're exposing it to light when it runs through the lens or behind the lens. And so light is being captured at that moment. Now, if light hits it while you're loading the film, it's spoiled, right? It's all just blank. And if after you expose it, run it through your gate, and then it gets exposed to light, then it's ruined. Like anything you captured is blank, because it's overexposed and destroyed, because it's so sensitive. It only takes a fraction of a second for an image to be, spilled onto it. If you think about, 24 frames a second is running through the camera, and then maybe only half of that time is spent with the gate open, then you can imagine just how quick and how sensitive it is to light. So any speck of light that gets on there can absolutely destroy your image. And so everything has to be light tight. So I'm on set. We're on like, I don't know, day 2 of shooting this short film. And it's always interesting as a director to be on someone else's set that I'm not an actor on and I'm not a director on. And so it's just like, I'm observing how another set is run without almost any stake in the game. I do my job, but there's also just a lot of standing around watching. And we maybe talk about that on another day, but and so I'm loading up a new magazine with film, and so whenever you're doing this, you take your magazine, you air blow it so that you can get all dust particles, any hair particles that have been floating around. You want to make sure nothing scratches this hypersensitive film, and you insert it into the bag, right? You unzip. There's 2 sides of it. The sides with that have the holes for your hands to go in. Then there's the other side, the back side, that has a zipper and a Velcro strap. And so you unvelcro it, you unzip it, place in the empty magazine, you place in the can of film that you're going to unwrap and, pull out and insert and start loading it. And you're doing all this stuff in the absolute dark. You can't see what you're doing. And so I'm in there, have my hands in, I work through it. Everything's fine. And I'm like, okay, this is done. And you do your best to kind of check and make sure like film's loaded. I got all the sprockets in place. And then you pull your hands out and you unvelcro it, unzip it. And it's at this point, I'm halfway unzipping it and it's having a hard time unzipping. And it's at this point that I realize the bag itself, the canvas bag, got sucked into the magazine as I was closing the lid on the magazine. A piece of the canvas, because again, this isn't a tint. It's like your hands are in this vacuum sealed Ziploc bag, because that's effectively what it is. There's no air that's flowing through there. Again, no dust, no light can get in. And if you're light tight, you're also, there's not a lot of oxygen that can get in, because the only 2 holes where air can flow is now occupied by your hands. And so you do your best to kind of create some space in there before you put your hands in, but it doesn't really work. You just can't. And so through the process of like opening, because again, imagine you're whatever, opening a bag or something in a vacuum sealed thing. Well, when that thing opens, it's pulling in, there's no extra air in there. And so it's sucking in the bag. And so you're kind of fighting that. And then you do your best to like move it out of the way so that whenever you close the magazine, it's clear, and you can usually tell because the latch will close. But there's so many layers to this bag that one of the very inside layer got caught in it, and I just couldn't tell. And so I latched it close, and as I'm pulling it out, I'm like, crap. I'm because the magazine won't come out, and I realize it's stuck. So I quickly shut it, zip it, Velcro it, put my hands back in to see what went wrong. And I'm like, crap, it just got caught in the magazine. Now here's where time stops for like 30 seconds and it feels like an hour, because I'm like, I think it's fine. Like I was already in a very dark place. The magazine was in, never really got exposed to light because I as a backup emergency, like I'm always making sure I don't do this in this really nicely well lit room, right? You do it in maybe not a pitch black bathroom, which sometimes I do. But in this case, we were just outside of a movie theater, so there wasn't anywhere for me to go. So I just kind of went on the side of a car, or no, there was a stand set up in the middle of this dark theater. And so I was there and I was like, I don't think it's ruined, but I don't know. There is no way to know. You would have to literally send a sample out to a lab to have them check it. Oh. Like there is absolutely no way to know, because
and it's not your production.
And it's not my production. And so I'm like, if this was my production, I'm probably fine. I'm like, I I think it's fine. Maybe I just use it as a backup magazine where I get some extra takes, some B-roll. And that way I'm not counting on it, but I also might get some really cool stuff and I don't waste a $200 roll of film. And we only have, I think, 12 or 15 rolls of film for this short film. And so I'm like, I don't know, but I got to be safe. I go and grab my DP because, again, I'm just a loader. And I go grab my DP and I'm like, hey, Brody, here's what happened. I think it's fine. What do you want to do? And it's hard. It's hard to go up to someone and say, I think I screwed up really badly. But at the same time, I think it's fine. And he looks at it, and I made sure to kind of keep everything exactly as it was so that he could get a good look. And he's like, I think you're right. I think it's probably fine. Let's scrap it. Just to be safe, just because we can't come back to this theater. That's a really expensive get. It costs like $2,000 to get this theater. And he's like, let's just be safe. And I'm like, okay. And so I had to risk looking like an idiot. I had to risk looking like a moron who doesn't know what he's doing and, can't hack it, and eat that bullet, because sometimes you have to do that. That's just the right thing to do. How much worse would I have felt if suddenly we go to expose the film and it's ruined, and now we have 11 minutes of footage erased from the ability to use. And so sometimes you just have to eat the bullet, and it sucks, but
that is such a great story for who you are, and that's why I'm your friend. What a great because yes, we all screw up and we all make mistakes, even at what we love, especially at what we love, because we do it a lot. But to take your 30 seconds to live with yourself, you're like, okay, yes, I'm an idiot. Okay, gotcha. All right. Now I got to go tell this other guy that I'm an idiot because it's his production, because that's what you would want somebody to do for you. And as difficult as it might be if it's your production, I think that you would think that would be honorable, because people aren't perfect. People screw up. Even people, let's say like Shannon, right? He's a professional DIT guy in Hollywood. Like the guy, I guarantee he has made mistakes. We're human beings, and I guarantee he's probably gotten in trouble, and I'm sure he's probably been in situations where they're like, well, we understand. Thank you for telling us whatever. Here's the way forward. It seems like that guy was pretty cool about it. Like he understood. Did it end up being okay?
I asked because I was like, tell you what, let me have that role. I want to find out. I'm going to go shoot on it. Whatever, I'll pay for it, but I'll go shoot on it and I'll just see if that was actually a bust or not. But apparently it got lumped in with everything else, and it got developed and there was nothing on it. And so we'll never know whether or not it was actually ruined.
What do you mean it got developed and there was nothing on it? What do you mean?
Well, he sent, after the production, he had 11 cans of film or whatever, with exposed properly, and then he had one that was not exposed properly. And if you go and develop that, like, there's nothing on it because there was never anything on it. There's no way to tell whether or not it got ruined or not.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so once it gets processed. And so, yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that. It was comforting after the fact, because again, I don't really know any of these people. This is my first time working with Brody. This is, all these, you just feel so small and so dumb. And especially working with film for the first time. And I was just like, oh man, but I would never live with myself. And after that, I started reading, some blogs, and there was one guy who was a loader on a big film, and he went to download film. Downloading, again, is when you've already shot a roll of film, and now there's two sides of film, right? There's the feeder side with the unexposed film. There's the take-up side with all the exposed film, right? And so this was on the take-up side that was exposed already. Yep. And he goes and he does it 1,000 times a day, right? Where he goes in, downloads film, loads a new roll, and finishes and goes out to the cart, and he's like, okay, here's a fresh mag that's ready. And he's like, something was different about that one. What was different about that? He kind of replays it into his mind. He's like, yeah, I went in, I saw it, I saw my, I saw the film that I pulled off and everything looked fine. Wait, I saw the film as I pulled it off I shouldn't be able to see the film. Like, there shouldn't be no light in the room. And he's like, oh my God, I'm going to look like the biggest jackass in the world. But I had to go to my AD and tell him, hey, this room is this last roll that we shot is ruined. I ruined it. We need to go reshoot all that stuff. Because, I flashed it. It's what you call it. Whenever you do that, I flashed the film. And everything was cool. I was like, hey, happens. Let's, hey guys, we can't move on. New deal. We need to go and reshoot this. And this is why you also have, logging sheets that tells you what exists on which roll of film, so that you can go and say, okay, we need this shot, and this shot that we shot on that last roll. And so
do they typically like wait to move until after, someone has downloaded the film for that reason?
Good question. I don't know. I suspect not. I suspect that everyone is just clicking. But the second you got to speak, of course.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be the worst job on set, man.
Worst.
I mean, where the only time anybody notices you is when you mess up.
Right. That's right.
You're like a drummer, right? Nobody notices you unless you mess up.
Oh, wow. Sometime maybe we can do
great story.
Yeah, it's funny here. I think it's interesting hearing stories on set, and maybe eventually we'll do Friday the 13th, which is I think the biggest movie I've worked on, where I was there for pretty much the entire production, as the stand-in for Jason Voorhees, of course. And so there's probably one or two interesting little tidbits that we can throw in, not necessarily because the movie is so epic and worthy of whatever. It's a horror film. It's a slasher film. Yeah. And we can analyze that. But yeah, maybe we'll do that eventually. That'd
cool.
be fun.
I would love that. Awesome.
Nice. So what are we analyzing today, man?
Yeah. So today we're covering Denis Villeneuve's Enemy. So if you haven't seen that film, please pause this episode, go watch it. I believe it is streaming. Where is it streaming? On HBO, I think, something like that. So if you haven't, please pause the episode, go watch it, because I guess we're gonna ruin some stuff. Not totally sure. It's like one of those films where it's like, I think it's about this, I think it's about that, and you're probably right. You're probably wrong.
And you're
like
probably wrong.
So.
For sure. We'll look at probably a lot of stuff, but I don't have a lot of stuff prepped. I have like one-ish thing prepped,
cool.
Which is the story and writing. Like, what's it all about? What's up with the spider? Yeah. So we'll dive into that and see if we can figure out what this movie is about, and other such stuff and things and stuff.
And a quick synopsis of the film, which... yeah, this is about as synopsis as you can get. I tried to tell my wife what it was about, and that took forever.
Man.
So this is interesting.
About those dude, and he's doing. Wait, hold on. Let me go back. I forgot about the penguin.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a man seeks out his exact lookalike after spotting him in a movie. It's directed by Denis Villeneuve, screenplay by Javier Gullón, based on the novel by Jose Saramago, cinematography by Nicolas Bolduc. It's featuring Jake Gyllenhaal as Adam and Anthony, Sarah Gadon as Helen, the wife, Melanie Laurent as Mary, the girlfriend, and Isabella Rossellini as mother.
Control. It's all about control. Every dictatorship has one obsession, and that's it. So in ancient Rome, they gave the people bread and circuses. They kept the populace busy with entertainment. But other dictatorships use other strategies to control ideas, the knowledge. How do they do that? Lower education. They limit culture, censor information. They censor any means of individual expression. And it's important to remember this, that this is a pattern that repeats itself throughout history.
Okay, Todd. So
Throw it at me. I know you always do.
I'm interested to hear, I assume this is. I know you've watched it at least one other time, but I don't know if you've watched it any other times between then and this. And so I'm interested just to hear what impact this has on you as a film. I'm going to go out on a limb and say you think it's an interesting movie, and I'm curious to hear what interests you about it. I'd also like to, hear your thoughts about cinematography. It's hard to, I don't have any notes about the cinematography, but it's almost impossible to talk about a Denis film without discussing cinematography. He's got such a strong visual language. And so I don't know, what do you got, man?
Jeez. Okay. Yeah, it's a very interesting film. It's a film that you have to watch more than once. You just have to, because the first time you don't know what's coming, you don't know what's happening, and then you're just left. Like the way it ends is like, what the? But in a second or third viewing, you notice some stuff, some ties. Like the clip you played is basically like a very direct representation of the film, I guess, for lack of a better term. But he talks about a pattern repeating itself. So what I think is what I think is that it is addressing many things, honestly. But I think like if you were to pick just a couple, on its surface, it's a couple of things. One, we have many people inside us, many different versions of us. We have the Honda driving, pays his bills on time, has a girlfriend, and is a professor.
That's a Volvo, sir. You will respect the Volvo.
Whatever, you know what I mean? I will. Drives a Volvo, even better. A box on wheels. And then on the other end, we all have a motorcycle driving, actor with a beautiful wife, pregnant, lives in a nice place. Like we have multiple versions of ourselves. It doesn't have to be those two things, but we have the upper echelon, like what we're capable of, and we have what we are. And I feel like it's partially you have to kill what you are in order to get to what that motorcycle driving, famous actor, beautiful wife version is. But it's a cyclical thing, because also once you do that, you are now a completely different person, and you are you basically have to kill off that version of yourself, right, to be something else. And I think the spider is interesting. I'll get to that in a second. But what I saw this time watching it was a circle. We start with him. We just see Jake Gyllenhaal going into this room with this key, and there's these women dancing, and then the whole spider. We see the spider situation, and she's about to kill it, and then it cuts, but we don't know what version that is, because then we see the professor, and we just assume that's him, but really it was the motorcycle driving version of him, and then we find out, it's a special club, and there's a key, and blah blah blah. And at the end, when he opens the package finally, or the envelope, and he sees the key, and he says, "I need to go out," and then he goes into the room and he sees the spider, or this big giant spider is there. It's basic. It's like her about to squish the spider at the beginning, I feel like, is him killing himself to become his other version of himself again. And so, and it's a cyclical thing, because when he walks in the room, he sees the giant spider. It's like we're addressing the elephant in the room, the spider in the room. You are now that thing that you weren't before, because you've killed yourself. You've killed that version of yourself. It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain, but when you watch it, you kind of feel it, which is brilliant, which is why Denny is just Denny. He's just able to tell a story without telling you anything. And that's what makes him so great. That's what makes his movies so rewatchable and so fun and great to talk about. That's what makes Nolan great to talk about. When you talk about Inception and we talk about Interstellar, it's like they're able to tell you these things without telling you the things, but also and leave you with something to talk about. I mean, I want to know what you think. That's just on the surface of what I think, you know. But like, I think it's interesting that when he finds his quote unquote doppelganger, it's not his doppelganger, it's him. They have the same scars. They look exactly the same. Their hands are the same. Like they are the same person. Hence, you know, becoming that new version of yourself. And I love that the motorcycle version. But Anthony, I don't know.
Yeah.
Motorcycle guy. His wife knows that that's the professor in bed. She says, "How was class?" Or whatever she says in bed, like knows and identifies, like says while she's laying on him, you know, and like she sees him. She welcomes that. She wants that. She wants that version of him. Right. But he can't help but be the other version. And it also, the last thing I'll say is that it could relate to pretty much anything that we're trying to stay away from, whether that's alcoholism or drugs or porn or whatever. I'm trying to stay away from biting your nails, like anything that we're like quote unquote addicted to that we're trying to stay away from. And we fight it. But then ultimately, you know, it takes us over. Or cheating, you know, once a cheater, always a cheater. That kind of thing. It's a really hard to forever change, to forever remove that from your life, if that is a thing that has been a source of like fulfillment for you, no matter how negative it is. I'm going to stop there because I could keep going and I just don't know where I'm going.
That's so cool that, you know, that's what you took away. This is such a cool movie, man.
It is.
Because my first or second time, maybe my second time watching it, the first time I'm watching it, I'm like, what is going on? What is going on? Right. And like you said, you have to watch it multiple times. And of all the movies we've ever done, this might be the only one. I would have to go back, but this might be the only one that is actually begging you to analyze it. Like the others welcome it, but this one is asking for it. And my second time watching it, I was like, that speech that I played, the lecture about dictatorship, I was like, oh, this is some kind of, I don't know, parable or allegory for dictatorship and government and identity and self-expression, right? Because, you know, he's an actor and he's it is this alternate version of himself that he doesn't get to experience. And so I finally sitting down to watch it, I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure this thing out. I've lightly made notes before, like mostly mental, like don't forget this, don't forget that. And this time I've watched it like 3 or 4 times in the last 24 hours. So like I'm like one step away from, you know, having cork boards and yarn and photos on my wall and like, you know, smoking cigarettes, chain smoking, and like you gotta know. Give me the coffee. I gotta tell you something. What about this? and I'm on the cusp here of discovering something big, Todd. And so sitting down and actually taking notes and like, okay, what is this movie trying to be and trying to communicate? And I love it for how obscure and surreal it is. All the imagery is very it's simple. This looks like the kind of movie they probably shot in 2 weeks. Maybe it took, I really have no idea. I kept trying to find out how long were they on set shooting this thing, because he shot this at about the same time as Prisoners. And I did read that Prisoners and Enemy got greenlit at the same time. So he's like, I guess I make 2 movies at once right now. And
Crazy.
it also screened both of these films, I think, at Toronto International Film Festival. And so he had 2 movies in one festival. It was just one of those like, what? You know, who are you, Ridley Scott? Like just cranking these things out. And so sitting down, actually trying to figure out, stop preconceiving, you know, what I think it might be about and just let it be on its own terms. I think it's much more simple than any of that. I think there's a few different ways you can look at it. I think honestly, even hearing you talk about it, I was like, you convinced me of that. So all bets are off. But I think if I were to think about what's the most interesting way to watch this film, it's as from the point of view, not of Adam, not of Anthony, but of Helen, his wife. If you watch this movie thinking that everything is from her point of view, every scene is from her point of view, or at least from the point of view of the women, then you arrive at a very different story. And it's a story of being gaslit.
Yes.
I think he's gaslighting Helen, his wife, the same way that we are being gaslit as a viewer. And one of the first things I think you have to ask yourself, is this a movie of that's grounded in realism, or is it something else? Right. And I think it has to be something else, unless I'm not aware of any like 500-foot tall spiders like roaming the earth. I mean, I've never been to Australia, which is where I assume you would probably keep, you know, a 500-foot spider. But barring that, you know, I'm just going to assume that this is not supposed to be grounded in reality. And so there is this kind of cyclical thing happening. There is this looping thing happening. And again, there's multiple ways that you can view this. One of them, I think the simplest way, is to think of it similar to what you're talking about, that everyone contains multitudes and different versions of yourself, and the version you want to be versus the version that you are. And that's really interesting. I think another way to think about that same kind of idea is you have Anthony, who is thinking in flashbacks, and what we're really seeing is his kind of death rattle. Like he got caught cheating, wrecked his car, and the spider web on the windshield, which is what you call that. Like I learned that in driver's ed, you know, when I was 15, 16, like whenever you're not buckled in, you hit the window, it creates a spider web. And that's where all the imagery of spiders comes from, is him kind of looking and dying and reflecting on his life and how he left his 6-month pregnant wife, you know, behind. And he shouldn't have been there in the first place. He's been cheating and running around, and now it's all finally caught up. Because if you also think about the conversation that's happening when the wreck happens, it's not one of unfamiliarity. This isn't Anthony trying to get one over on some other guy's girlfriend. It's not that. It's one of lovers having an argument. What does he say? He's something like, "I'm sick and tired of this shit. Like you're acting like a child," right? He's being very demeaning. He's being very aggressive. These are kind of the hallmarks of a narcissist, right? Who he got caught. Like she saw the ring mark on his finger in the middle of sex. She flips out, right? And this movie is so brilliant because it lets you watch it in one way. The first time you watch it, you are thinking this is a guy who's discovering a doppelganger, and he doesn't know what to make of it. And now the doppelganger wants to hook up with his girlfriend because he's a raging piece of shit. Okay. And then the doppelganger gets caught, and the girlfriend is like, "Who are you? Like, I don't know who you are." Whereas if you start thinking about it in this other term, all these conversations start to take on a completely new context, new meaning, because now instead of saying "who are you," as in I literally don't know who you are, she's talking more figuratively, like, "Who are you? Who am I? Who have I been seeing? You're a married man. What is this person? Like, who are you?" And so there's that side of it, and that's a really interesting way to think about all the imagery, the spider, blah blah blah. Okay, that's one.
Wow, that's really great.
it makes sense, right? It starts to like click. And it's also why whenever he walks in at the end, you know, he sees a spider. But if you stop thinking about the spider and you start thinking about the first images that we see in the film, it's the third image we see. The first one is the skyline, which you can almost escape from and say that's not really our first image. The next image that we see is him in the car. Okay. But the image after that is his pregnant wife on the bed looking back at him over the shoulder. She's naked, right? Well, she has her underwear on, but you know, she's topless. And that, I think you could say, is the start of the film, where he walks in, he's giving her a line right at the end of the film. He walks in, he's like, hey, do you have anything, planned tonight? I think I got to go out. And cut from, instead of going to the spider, you cut to her looking back over her shoulder. Now that's not perfect because at the same time, she just walked out of the shower. So her hair should be wet. It's down. In the opening scene, it's actually up, it's dry. So it's not technically that, but I think it starts a new cycle, which is what he's talking about of great events don't happen once, they happen twice. The first time. And
she's actually sitting on Adam's bed.
Yes.
Yeah, like the professor's bed.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Like,
good. Interesting.
It's that angle and that in that room, because then we see Anthony's bed whenever they're laying together later on. That's a totally different bed, and it's from a completely different angle. Because
their house that they live in together as a married couple is really nice, and Adam's house is garbage. Like it's barely anything empty there. Yeah, it's empty. And so that, I think you're right. And so that would completely make sense for the next version that I'm gonna the one that I think is most interesting, that will really mess you up, is way better, which is the gaslighting. He is telling her that there's another guy who's pretending, who looks like me, and when in reality he just got caught having an affair, and he's trying to create this whole other story to get him out of being caught. And so if you think about this as, there is no Adam. I mean, there is an Adam Bell, but it's not him. It looks nothing like him. It's not Anthony. It's not a lookalike. It's just some other dude that he got caught having an affair with his girlfriend. That's what it is. Anthony had an affair on Helen with some other guy's wife, who is Mary, the girlfriend, played by Melanie Laurent. And he got caught. Adam Bell calls his house and is trying to figure out, like, who is this guy? Okay, so we never meet Adam. We never hear Adam. Everything that's Adam is a story that Anthony is telling his wife.
God damn, that's good.
And so now, with that in mind, he's trying to actively gaslight his wife. And gaslighting has taken on kind of more meanings in today's society, but the original term comes from a play, I believe, called Gaslight, where this man is trying to make his wife go crazy in order to do something, probably have an affair. I don't know. I haven't seen or read the play. And so he's just messing with her head to make her feel like she's crazy, and presenting a false reality as a reality. And so think about him gaslighting his wife. He's trying to convince her of this whole other reality, where there's someone who looks just like me, but it's not me, but they look just like me. And now replay all the conversations that happen with all the women. Those are real conversations. Those are real moments. Everything between Adam and Anthony is fake. It's bullshit. And so you have to start looking at it from that point of view. And so if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see what's going on. So Todd, I'm going to screen share. And if you're only listening on the podcast, that's fine. I will just cut to the good bits, because there's a lot of body communication, nonverbal stuff happening that I think plays better. And so let's go through some of these scenes with this in mind. This is fake. This is her husband doing a bit.
Hello?
Good afternoon.
Hey,
I'm calling to speak
where
to
are you calling from?
I'm sorry. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm calling to speak to Daniel St. Clair.
Anthony? Anthony, you called home.
I'm sorry. I don't understand.
What are you doing?
My name's not Anthony.
You're not Anthony.
No. I'm calling to speak to Daniel St. Clair, the actor. If I'm not mistaken, that's Anthony Clair's name that he uses for the movies for his work.
Right. Right. Well, Daniel isn't here right now. Maybe I can get him to call you back.
Okay, I'm sorry to bother you.
What?
What?
Who is this? Hello? Who is this?
Oh, he doesn't know me. No. Okay, I'll call
Anthony?
back later.
That's a husband scared that he's about to get caught. That's the franticness. It's not, oh my God, someone recognized my voice, even though it plays that way. It's a husband who's now playing a bit. At first, he's kind of laughing it off, and then he commits, right? And now it's like, okay, now let's look at the next conversation with his wife.
Yep.
Hey, okay. Listen to me. Never call here again.
Who was that?
It was that same guy.
What did he want?
I don't know, he sounded crazy, like he sounded like a stalker or something.
A stalker?
Yeah, he said that he was a fan of mine, that he wanted to meet up or something.
What? No.
Yeah.
You're messing with me. Right? Anthony.
You want to get something to eat?
Who was on the phone?
Helen, the same guy who called before. The same guy. That's who's on the phone. I told you that. Why would I tell you any differently?
Are you lying to me? You're lying to me.
You're acting crazy.
I'm not crazy. Who was on the phone?
I told you it was a man who was on the phone.
Are you seeing her?
Helen, I don't want to get into this.
Are you seeing her again?
I think you need to get something to eat. Let's go get something to eat. And then...
I don't want to get anything.
It was a man! It was a man! What do you think it was, a jealous husband?
Yeah.
I don't want to get into this again. Okay? I don't want to get into this. I'm going for a walk.
Okay, so
Oh, yeah.
You start to see it, right? Like it just feels so obvious. But the other thing that he does in that scene is he goes in plain sight, writes a note, stuffs it in his pocket. Now, if you're trying to actually keep this down the down low, you don't do that. Instead, he wants her to discover this name because he's already Googled it. Now, the other thing you have to realize is this whole thing isn't necessarily in sequence. It's all told at the convenience. There's a lot of censorship going on, right? The control of information. There's a lowering of education, right? This is also the director at war with us to gaslight us. He's doing his best to make us just as convinced as Helen is that this is all real. that there really is someone else that looks just like him who's having sex with this other petite blonde white girl who seems to be his type.
Yeah.
You know? And so you're starting to be like, wait. And so what does she do? She goes into his pocket, discovers this, note, and the very next day goes to find, well, what does Adam Bell look like? What is this? Oh, there's this guy. And how does that conversation go?
Hello.
Hi.
Everything all right? How many months are you?
Six.
That's nice. I should be going. I have a class I have to teach. Never know how your day's gonna turn out. Have a nice day.
And of course, she calls him and he picks up, but it's only after he turns the corner. So we never really see, it's just enough to kind of convince her that maybe. And he doesn't stop. The next conversation is her confessing to him.
The guy on the phone, I went to his work.
Why did you do that? That's dangerous, honey.
I wanted to know.
Are you okay?
He had the same voice. He looks exactly like you.
What do you mean exactly like me?
What's happening?
I really don't know what you're talking about.
I think you know. I think you know.
So the other thing that could be happening is this guy is just leading an actual double life. That's possible. That's slightly less fun, even though I think it holds up to the same level of scrutiny. But either way, he still has to gaslight her into thinking these are two separate people, and would also explain some of the stuff happening with his girlfriend. But I think one of the most telling moments is the conversation with his mom. I think he's trying to drag his mother into his drama. And if you stop thinking about this guy again finding a doppelganger and he's trying to get confirmation, Mom, we assume so many pieces of information. And this is where that opening soundbite of this dictatorships that control information, right? Through censorship, through distractions, right? Rome had bread and circuses. And so he's trying to provide all these distractions. And now he's trying to figure out a way, because his wife is onto him. If you also watch the film thinking about some of these shots that look like they're coming from Anthony are actually coming from his wife, it's suddenly looking like she's watching him, and instead of Anthony is watching himself. But listening to this conversation with his mother, thinking about he's trying to get her to help him get out of this. And he's devised this whole scheme that we're talking about, that I'm going to tell her that there's this other guy who looks just like me. And what do you think, Mom? Because at the beginning of the film, what does she say? Hey, thanks for showing me your new apartment. This is the voicemail that she left on his phone. And she's saying, I don't know how you live like that. And we just kind of assume nothing really. We don't know anything. And it's pretty nice that the very first thing we hear is something that we can't contextualize. And so give it to us there. That way it's absolutely useless to us. But hey, you gave us the information. And so let's watch the conversation with his mom.
There must be some difference.
There isn't.
It cannot be exactly the same.
We are.
Did you take your clothes off in front of him?
No.
Okay, then. You didn't eat. The last thing you need is to be meeting strange men in hotel rooms. You have enough trouble sticking with one woman, don't you? Here.
I don't like blueberries.
Of course you do. And they're good for you. I am going to pretend I never heard a word of what you just told me.
I just wanted your advice.
You don't want advice. I don't want to hear any more about this. You are my only son. I am your only mother. You have a respectable job. You have a nice apartment. And since we're being frank here, I think you should quit that fantasy of being a third-rate movie actor.
That felt personal. Like, stop trying to be an actor. Like when your mom hits you with calling you a third-rate anything, either she's a really bad mom, or you probably need to stop doing whatever it is that you're doing. The other interesting thing though is that her place is really nice, filled with art. She's an artist. She's making a living as an artist. And you can see where his inclination for acting might come from. She says he has a respectable job. We don't know what that job is. It's not out of the question that maybe he's a teacher. And this is how he discovered all these things. Maybe Adam Bell is, someone that he saw around on campus. Maybe that's how he got to see his girlfriend and how he made a move on his girlfriend. Because I also think whenever we see him on the train, that's when we actually see him see her for the first time, or at least he's now jealous about her and wants her back. It's really, there's just not enough information here to go on. And that's kind of the point, is to kind of keep you as in the dark as possible while giving you just enough information to make your suspicions. But it goes back to that scene you talked about. How was school? It's him. It's her. Whenever he's undressing there, we rack focus from him to her. She sees something. She sees something on his back. And if he's just getting home from an affair, because he was supposed to be out with his mom, he wasn't. He was out having an affair, which is the whole hotel that he goes to, the hotel that they meet in, out in whatever Breezeway Inn, even though that's not the hotel that they go to. It's not an inn that they go to. They end up at a hotel. But if you watch that scene, it's him following this woman, or at least he's eyeballing the hell out of her. And she's walking with the card in the hand. He's following behind her. And then there's this weird little jump cut where he's just suddenly at room 221. And it's important to remember room 221 because that's the same room he goes and meets the girlfriend in whenever they escape for the weekend getaway. That's the same room that he takes her to. And so it's weird that he would go and meet his doppelganger in this room that he just happens to, whatever.
And that was an hour outside of town. It's like,
right.
Why?
Yeah, exactly. There was no reason to go that far out of the way to meet this guy, since it's all innocent anyway. And so, yeah, I think that begins to explain the ending, the whole sequence where he wakes up. He's not a sociopath. He does have a conscience. He's just a really big pile of poop. Like, he's just a terrible human being. He has no excuse to be running around having an affair. And so this whole conversation that he has on the couch, I mean, the few words that he gets out, he's crying, he's upset, he couldn't sleep, and he apologizes. Why is he, if this is some random dude, this is Adam, the history teacher, apologizing to her, we take it on face value as, I'm sorry, I'm not, you know who I am, and I'm not getting away with it, as the doppelganger pretending to be Anthony. That's what we assume it is to be, but it's so much more sense to be apologizing. I'm acting weird, I'm acting funny, because I had an affair and I'm sorry. And that's why she says, I want you to stay. Like, we can work through this. And, you know, they're making up. And the next day, something else happens, right? He gets the key and he opens the key, and watch how he reacts whenever she calls to him from the other room.
To tell you that your mother called. Should probably call her back.
Okay. Helen, did you plan on doing something tonight? Because I think I have to go out. Helen? Helen?
Caught. And so I think when you start to ask, why a spider? Why insert this thing? I really like what you said. It's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It's the thing, you know, you're caught. I think that works really, really well. I also think you could say, why a spider? It's because he's been spinning this web of lies. And whenever you keep doing that, you turn her into a spider. You turn her, and he keeps treating her like she's the enemy. That's why it's called Enemy. Because he's treating her like she's the enemy. Y'all are supposed to be married. This is supposed to be your love of your life. This is not how you, I think he's doing it wrong. Like, if this is a reason to get married and have a family, why are you doing it if you have so much contempt for it? And so I think the final thing I would say is him treating her that way turns her into the spider. And that's why at the beginning of the film, he goes into the sex club, whatever it is, a secret underground, weird spider fetish, women performing sex acts on stage thing. And she's the spider at the beginning of the film being crushed by his affairs. And so you start having all these symbolic gestures to I don't know, just make it this incredible, surreal experience. Maybe it still ties into him, you know, reevaluating his life in the wreck. There's something that they're not giving us, all the information that we need in order to perfectly decipher this. And that's also why at the beginning of the film, chaos is order, yet undeciphered. We don't quite have the perfect key to unlock the codex that explains everything perfectly. And I think there's a lot of information they're holding back. There's probably, if you imagine, some of these scenes are longer scenes, like the conversation with his mother is a 5-minute scene instead of a 2-minute scene. The first 3 minutes, they just cut out. The scene on the couch with his wife is a 5-minute scene. But when we're cutting away, we're cutting out. all the other bits of conversation. And instead we're watching the affair dissolve. And it's the same thing. Even though it's a conversation with his wife, we're still watching the conversation happen, just in literal form. It's this other thing happening. I had other thoughts. I can't quite remember because there's just a million things happening, but this whole thing is about gaslighting his wife, and gaslighting us to also go along with it. Because if someone presented all this to you, you're like, well, yeah, I mean, there's two of these guys, right? Like, especially your first time through.
Apparently you're second and third too.
Yeah,
because, oh my God, like, yeah, this might be the most insightful episode we've ever done from you. Like, that is absolutely mind-bendingly awesome.
It's really cool because then if you think about that, like, everything Adam is doing is a lie. Now you listen to their phone conversations, stop listening to what Adam is saying, start listening to what Anthony is saying. And imagine that his wife is standing 5 feet away around the corner listening in. And then when he gets off the phone, he's like, no, it was a conversation with this guy. I'm telling you, this is what he said. Like, suddenly he's filling in all the pieces of information with a lie that's supposed to be this real thing. And it just keeps spinning weirder and weirder. And he's just, I don't know, like the last thing you can do, because when you're lying to someone, there's tells. Like, he keeps laughing. He keeps smiling, because he's like, you just can't help it. You're getting away with a really crazy lie. And so it seeps out, like, and when he's on the bench, he lets out this laugh. Man, where the day's going to take you, right? Gotta go. Like, I can't hold on anymore. On the phone, he lets out a laugh that's uncomfortable. And then he's like, crap, I gotta really get it together. And you also think about the moment whenever he's rehearsing how he's going to give it to Anthony or Adam. Anthony is an actor, and he uses those acting talents against his wife. And we see him rehearsing how he's going to convince Adam to give his girlfriend over to him. Right. And he's practicing in the mirror, right? And then you think about the conversation with his wife at drinking the orange juice. It was a man on the phone. Like, that's rehearsed. This is him going through the motions of things that he's already practiced. He's written.
And she said, are you seeing her again? He never says that he's not. And with the way that he positions himself as the island in the kitchen is between them.
Oof.
So he comes in, immediately goes and pours the orange juice, walks in, he writes that note, but then he comes back and he again stands on the other side of the island as if to, like, separate them. That's it. Yeah, exactly. Now that I watch it from that point of view, it's obvious. It's obvious.
So
and
obvious.
then why in that other clip you played when they're laying on the couch and she's like, what's happening? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not what you say.
That's
what
not
you
what
say
you
is,
say.
I don't know what's happening. This is crazy. Like, I can't believe there's somebody, but he's just a bad liar. He's trying to,
yeah.
it's almost like he's trying to get caught, or he's just not that. But anyway, yeah.
And at the end of the movie, right, it feels like he's turning a corner. And this is why I think it all makes sense too, is because one of two things, either he wrecked the car and got out and left that girl there, and now he's home and he's dealing with everything that he just experienced, because we never hear, like, she turns the radio station from whatever happened to that girl. We don't know, because it's a one vehicle crash, so that crash really happened, and we don't know if he was in the car whenever whatever people came, or I think he just got out, because the other interesting thing about the spider web on the windshield is it's on the passenger side. It's not on his side. And so I don't know, maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't. But yeah, and then the other thing is, if that was really Adam at the end taking over this guy's life, then it doesn't make sense for him to to react so suspiciously when he finds the key. He finds this key, right? And he knows immediately what it is. And it's just like temptation is there again. Oh my God. And that key could be to the secret underground sex club, or it also could be the key to this other apartment. And maybe this is where the loop starts over again, because again, the history happens twice, right? That's what Hegel said. And then Marx added in the first time is a tragedy, second time is a farce. So if the tragedy of the first affair is the car wreck and him living and getting out and saying, I'm sorry, this is never happening again. The second time through is a farce. And that's what this whole movie is. It's one big farce of him trying to cover up his sins. Because now that she's aware that he's a cheater, you're going to have to work harder to get away with it. And he opens his key and is like, shoves it down into his pocket, right? Hey, you like you said, he's trying to be a good liar. He's really mediocre at it. He has his moments, he has his bad moments, which, is how it goes when people are cheating on each other. And he's like, I think I got to go out. When he walks in the room, there she is. She knows. It's a weird spider. The interesting thing about the spider is it looks pregnant. If you look at the first one, it's got this huge, body on the end. It looks like a pregnant spider to me, which of course would, fit perfectly with his wife. And then the spider at the end has this big eye, right? That's just sitting in the middle of its body. Spiders don't have a eye. They have like 1,000 eyes. And some of that might be reflected in some of the imagery as he's walking to put on his jacket. We're looking through a mirror at him, and it's got all these little reflections. And I think that could be a case of the spider is watching him and is aware of his actions and is wanting to see what he's going to do. And then, of course, he walks in, and now she's in a corner. She's suspicious, and I don't know. It's interesting. I love this movie. I might be able to put it to rest now, but because it's not a perfect symmetrical mapping of my theory, I don't know what to do with it, Todd.
It's pretty goddamn symmetrical. It's pretty insightful. You didn't you just came up with that?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's out there, right? Like once you start seeing it from the lens of the women, because the affair is real, to Helen. It's real to the girlfriend. And when she finds out, she flips out like, whoa, you're married? Who are you? Like, this is insane. Because maybe at first she was aware. Maybe it was like, oh, I'm going to leave her. And, I don't know. You can paint in all this interesting backstory. It's not really supported by what we see, but again, there's so little to go on, which is the whole point of a really good lie, is to give as little information as possible to the victim. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, this was just me trying to read the tea leaves a bit.
That's incredible. I literally have nothing else to add. I can't follow that with anything. That's I don't know what's more amazing, that was made, right, or that's what you got out of it. And that I totally agree. I don't know. I mean, definitely that it was made. I get that, but that's pretty freaking cool. I've never heard that before. What an amazing way to put something like that.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's fascinating. It makes me want to what if I were to make a sister movie to this? Like, what would that story even look like? How would you go about creating something that's so far removed from the real story? It feels like a story about a story about a story. And at a certain point, it's like, this was just about a guy cheating, and now it's about a spider like stalking the city looking for her husband, or whatever.
Well, and to have the main character not be the main character, that's really the thing that, like, when you said that, I was like, oh my God. Yeah. And I've never seen a story told about a character that's like focused on a character that's not the main character.
Yeah.
Like, really, the main character, you're right, is the wife. Because it's basically like everything happens to her, around her, about her. like at her, and that's the perspective that you have to look at it from.
And
amazing.
It's interesting that we never really see any tenderness that he has towards her. He really does treat her like the enemy. And I really think that's why it's called Enemy. As opposed to the first time we meet the girlfriend, he greets her at the door, gives her a hug, gives her a kiss. They go have sex. We never see them have sex. His wife, like they start to on the couch at the end as an act of forgiveness and welcoming him back into the fold or whatever is the way I read it. But we see all kinds of tenderness, a lot of sex between him and his girlfriend, and it's lust, right? It's out of sequence. I think it's cool. It's a really cool movie. I don't know. Yeah, that's all I got. I'll stop because it never ends, right? You just kind of keep putting everything under the microscope.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Nice. I have nothing. I don't want to say anything else. I think it's a great way to leave it.
What are you going to recommend this week?
Man, I mean, I can't really follow that with anything. I'm gonna recommend this Apple TV show Shrinking that I started watching with Jason Segel and Harrison Ford. I just started watching it because I watched Ted Lasso and then I saw it after it, and it's entertaining. It's funny. Jason Segel is brilliant in it. I think the writing is funny and it's fun, and interesting. It's interesting. So I'm going to recommend Shrinking on Apple TV.
Did you also watch the first season? I haven't seen either season. Or did you just go straight to the second season?
Oh no, I started from the beginning.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll check that out. I've been meaning to because the first season has Will Ferrell and Paul, not Giamatti. Good God.
Oh, wait, what?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. So you just saw the new one with Harrison Ford and Jason Segel.
Yeah. No, is there another one?
Yeah, the first season. I think it's anthology. I don't know. Again, I haven't watched it, but
I mean, it says season 1. I'm looking at it here. It says season 1. But I thought that was a movie. The one with Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd, thank you.
Yeah, with Paul Rudd and
Really?
Will Ferrell.
Oh,
I thought that was some kind of movie or something.
Maybe. I thought it was a show, so you might very well be right.
Might be right. Anyway, this says season 1 that I'm watching on Apple TV. So I don't know.
What is it? I'm looking it up now just to see what. It's not even on here. I don't know. I feel like I'm being gaslit now by Apple.
Apple is gaslighting you. Oh, they gaslight all of us. No, we're not throttling. We're not throttling at all. No way. Actually, we're throttling years later. That's the literal definition of gaslight.
I'm going to recommend, if you like kind of weird mind-bending things, I'm going to recommend a movie. It's probably new context in light of the last few years, some of the conversations. But when it first came out, it was one of those like, what? This is crazy. It's called The Skin I Live In. It's with Antonio Banderas. It's wild. It's I want to say a Mexican film. And so Spanish subtitles. But man, like that's a journey. If you enjoyed Enemy, you would probably get a kick out of The Skin I Live In. That's a wild one.
Cool.
Yeah. Spotlight. I meant to do this last week. We have several spotlights coming up over the next few weeks. This week, spotlight on Chris Menges, friend of the show. He was with Cassie whenever they came on to talk about Blade Runner 2049. He works at Weta Workshop. He's a craftsmith, blacksmith, does all kinds of cool things. And he made, or at least was a part of a team that made a bunch of stuff for Snow Crash. And Snow Crash was recommended by Ricky Holm, who came on the show during Ready Player One. And so Snow Crash is a book that's about virtual reality and all kinds of other stuff. In the book, there's a character named Hiro who has a really cool sword. And there's all kinds of interesting other tech stuff that happens in that world of Snow Crash. And so Weta Workshop put together this crazy package of this amazing box. And the sword, they built the sword from this book. Chris Menges worked on the sword, and it's amazing. It's like one of the coolest things I've seen. And so I'll link I'll link it to in the show notes what the sword looks like and everything. According to hopefully Chris has something in his Instagram profile that has it. That's where I found out about it. But they put all this stuff together and sold it at Sotheby's for like $400,000. Like this thing went for crazy bucks to probably some wild fan of Snow Crash, which should be made into a movie. But yeah, it's really, really cool craftsmanship. Hats off to Chris and his team because it's freaking cool. Yeah, stay tuned for next week. We're not done with you, Denis Villeneuve. We're going to take a look at Prisoners because, again, these movies were made right about at the same time, finished at the same time. And so I suspect Prisoners will be a different experience from Enemy. Enemy's kind of singular in the film world, I think. I don't know that there's anything else like it that I've seen. And part of, I guess, why it's so fascinating to watch. Yeah, so stay tuned for Prisoners. And if you're enjoying the show, don't forget, drop us a note. Shout out to Seth. He sent some really cool stuff recently, and I'm really, really interested to dive into he sent a pitch deck that he's working on. Really cool stuff, really fun ideas. And so great job, man. I have an email that I'm cooking up back to you. Yeah. So if you ever want to reach out and talk, yeah, let us know what you're enjoying about the show. You can leave us a review. Sorry, I got a text in the middle of talking and it just completely, so I probably sounded like a weirdo, like Anthony lying to his wife.
Yeah, right. Right. Is it her?
Yeah.
Wait, are you cheating on me with some other podcast?
Where I'm not podcasting with anyone else but you, Todd.
You better not be. You like blueberries, right?
No. And yeah, so if you want to leave a note on this episode, what's your theory? What is this movie really about according to you? Leave us a note at thepestlepodcast.com/enemy.
And our quote of the day is from Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Truth in philosophy means that concept and external reality correspond. That's about as confusing to me as this movie.
So
concept and reality
correspond.
Okay.
So I was interested. I've never heard of Hegel, and so whenever he mentions him as part of his lecture, I was like, okay, what's this guy about? And so looked up a bunch of his quotes, and this I felt corresponds pretty well to the movie. Truth in philosophy means that concept and external reality correspond. Concept and external reality correspond. And when I was thinking about it, applying it to this movie, the concept is that this guy is being, a philanderer, and he's gaslighting his wife. So that's our concept. The external reality is being represented through like the spider and this other doppelganger actually existing. He's trying to make it look like the external reality is very truth, and is very much part of the concept. And that's kind of the philosophical stakes at play, right? His philosophy is that, cheating, you're creating an alternate reality in order to get away with cheating. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's messy. My analogy here is,
no, that makes perfect sense. I completely get it. And that's an interesting way to look at writing a story. If you think about it, it's like, okay, well, I need a concept and I need to show that reality. Now I don't need to do it in a way that's obvious. I can attach the spider to her. I can do things around it, but like looking at them as separate things, as long as you make them correspond, then they result in truth. Does that make sense? So like, that's an interesting way to write a story. In fact, it might be the interesting way to write a story, right? Like any story that actually obeys that law could be done in any way. I mean, that might like Pulp Fiction is a great example, right? Where everything's out of order, but you have certain realities. I don't know, maybe it's a bad example of that, but if you sit down and you say, okay, I have these two things, I have concept and I have external reality, as long as I make sure that they marry, then that is a truth.
Oh.
Like, that's interesting. You know what I mean?
That is interesting, yeah. That's a fun approach to, telling a story, especially
so
a
you
visual
don't necessarily
story.
need to know the beginning and the end. You can just make sure at any point, whenever you're in a scene, does this external reality meet the criteria of whatever this concept is? Like, okay, so he's a cheater who's creating an alternate reality, right? Like that's what this needs to involve. And as long as it involves that, and it's matching the concept, like that would be fun.
That sounds really fun. God, yeah.
Sounds like something you should do.
Yeah, I'll tinker with that.
I like this. This is mind bending. Good. Gosh, you have killed this episode today.
Thanks, man. I really was worried coming into this one because it's such a weird movie. It's begging to be analyzed, and so if nothing else, it's good bullshit.
Oh man, amazing. Well, thank you guys for joining us and going on this crazy ride. And man, that was really mind-bending and wonderful. I feel like I have ammunition to go make something now. Thank you for that, Wes. As Wes said before, if you like this, please share us with your friends, subscribe, review, all that good stuff. It all helps. If there's a film that you want to see us dissect, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, I don't know. I have nothing else to add. Until next time, I'm Todd.
I'm Wes.
Go watch some movies.